All right, let's dive into an incredible ancient story. We're talking about power, paranoia, and one single decision made in the dark of a cave that literally changed the course of a kingdom. So let me ask you this. Imagine your greatest enemy, the one person who wants you gone, who has hunted you down, is suddenly delivered right into your hands. Helpless. You could end it right then and there. What do? Seriously, what's the move? That's the massive dilemma right at the heart of the story we're getting into. Okay, so let's set the scene. You've got two main players here. First, there's King Saul. He's the powerful ruler of Israel, but he's just eaten up by jealousy and fear of this rising star. And who's that star? Well, that's our other guy, David, the young warrior hero who's now become a fugitive, hiding out in the wilderness with his loyal crew. You can just feel it, right? A deadly showdown is coming. And where is all this going down? Well, the setting is just as dramatic as the story itself. We're in the desert of En-Gedi. Think harsh, rocky, desolate. It's a landscape of cliffs and caves. Now, for David and his men, yeah, it's a great place to hide. But it's also the perfect place to get cornered. There's really no easy way out. And get this, the scale of this manhunt is just massive. Saul is not messing around. He's brought 3,000 of his best, hand-picked soldiers. That is an absolutely overwhelming force, and their one and only job is to find and wipe out David. The odds, let's just say they are seriously stacked against him. Okay, and this is where it all flips. We're at the moment where everything changes. In the pitch black of a cave, a completely random encounter is about to happen. You know, just when things look their worst for David, this unbelievable opportunity just falls into his lap. The hunter is literally about to walk right into the lion's den, and he has no idea. And you know how it happens? Because of a totally normal, everyday human thing. King Saul, well, he needs to use the bathroom. He needs a little privacy. Sees a cave on the side of the path and just ducks inside. He's all by himself, completely clueless. And here is the crazy twist. Of all the caves in this entire desert, which one does Saul walk into? Yup, the very same one where David and his men are hiding deep in the darkness. Just like that, the most powerful guy in the kingdom is suddenly at his most vulnerable, and his mortal enemy is standing just a few feet away. Now, David's men, they can't believe it. This is not just a coincidence to them, no way. They see it as a sign from God. They're whispering to David, "This is it. This is the day he promised. Your enemy is right here, a gift. You gotta deal with him now." Can you just imagine the pressure on David in that moment? So now we get to the core of it, the big choice. His men are pushing him. His enemy has no clue he's there. David has to make a call. And what he does next, well, it's going to define everything. Not just who he is, but the entire future of the kingdom. And this is where what you'd expect to happen and what actually happens just split. I mean, everybody, his men, Saul, if he had any idea, they'd all assume David's going to take him out. But no, David does something nobody saw coming. He sneaks up, silent as a shadow, and instead of taking Saul's life, he just slices off a corner of his robe. What's really incredible, though, is that even doing that, just this small symbolic thing, weighs on him. The story says his conscience was stricken. Just cutting a piece of cloth felt wrong, like a huge violation. That really tells you how deep his personal code of honor ran. For him, this wasn't about his enemy. It was about disrespecting the office of the king. So he actually turns to his men and pretty much shuts them down. And his reason is spelled out right here. He says Saul isn't just some guy. He's the Lord's anointed. And that one phrase, that changes everything. So what in the world does that actually mean? Okay, this is absolutely the key to understanding why David did what he did. The Lord's anointed basically means the king was handpicked by God. He was set apart. And this wasn't just some abstract religious idea. It was the foundation of their entire political system. Attacking the king, even a bad king, was like attacking God's choice directly. It was a move that could throw the whole nation into chaos and civil war. And for David, that was a line he would not, under any circumstances, cross. But David doesn't just let Saul walk away and call it a day. Oh no. He takes this act of mercy and turns it into the ultimate weapon, proof of his innocence. He's about to flip the script on Saul completely, and not with a sword, but with pure logic and hard evidence. So picture this. Saul leaves the cave, thinks nothing of it,
and starts walking away. Then David steps out into the sunlight. He calls out to him, "My lord the king!" Saul turns around, and what does he see? He sees David bowing all the way down to the ground. It's an incredible show of respect, especially for the guy who's been trying to kill him.
And then David just lays out this perfect, airtight case. It's brilliant. Step 1, he shows him the proof. He holds up that piece of the robe and says, "See this? I was this close. I could have killed you, but I didn't." Step 2, he calls out the injustice. "I've done nothing wrong to you, but you're hunting me down." And step 3, he takes it to a higher court. He says, "Let God be the judge between us." I mean, it is an absolute masterclass in how to win an argument.
And the way he uses humility here is just genius. He calls himself a dead dog and a flea. He's basically asking Saul in front of all 3,000 of his soldiers, "Really? Is this what you're doing? The great king of Israel is out here with an entire army hunting a single flea?" It just completely exposes how absurd and over the top this whole manhunt is. It makes Saul look ridiculous.
So the big question is, how does the king, this powerful, paranoid king, react to being called out like this by the very guy he's trying to kill? Well, his response is something nobody could have predicted. It's absolutely stunning. This tough-as-nails hunter just breaks. The story says that when he hears David's voice and finally gets what just happened in that cave, he just starts weeping out loud. It's like the weight of his own wrongdoing and the shock of David's mercy just hits him like a ton of bricks.
And then he says it, the big confession. In his own words, Saul admits everything. Right there in front of his whole army, the king says that David, the fugitive, is a better, more righteous man than he is. He just completely hands over the moral high ground.
But he doesn't stop there. He goes even further and says something almost like a prophecy. He finally admits the one thing he's been fighting against this whole time: destiny. He looks at David and says he knows that he, David, will be the next king. The hunter is basically telling the hunted, "You are the future." And just like that, this unbelievably tense showdown ends, not with a battle, but with a truce. Saul promises to leave him alone and heads for home with his army. David, who's probably smart not to trust him completely, heads back to his hideout. For now, at least, the hunt is over. So in the end, David had the power to kill, right? But he chose a different kind of power, the power of mercy. And think about it, this wasn't just him being a good guy. It was a brilliant strategic move. It completely disarmed his enemy, it showed the entire nation what kind of man he was, and it cemented his future as king way more than a sword ever could. And that kind of leaves us with a big question to think about, doesn't it? In a world so focused on power, what's the real value of showing mercy?